as well. Thank you. Backing vocals and backing guitar and backing vocals. Come and sit around on the black microphone, please, Laurence. Oof. Wow. That's a beautiful song.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful song with such a normal title.
Yeah.
Right. It's like calling it Sandwich or something, right?
That's what I like about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Similarly, why did you go? What was it about Trainers? Did the title take a while to come about with that?
I was filming a thing in Netflix in Spain, in Madrid,
Right.
and in Mallorca, and we all used to have a few jars on the roof of the hotel of an evening. And me and Laura Haddock, who was in it as well, we sat down and she was like, oh, I've written some poems. And I was like, oh, I've written some stuff as well. So we kind of wrote it together. And then we sang it together. Yeah, that's how it came about.
Is it an important part of your downtime when you're acting to write songs?
I think so, yeah. It's quite a good way of processing stuff, isn't it? You know, but it's cheaper than therapy. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure you've had that as well.
Yeah, some.
Yes.
A little bit.
Does it... It's interesting because as an actor, you're playing other people. So you're channeling own feelings, but to project to someone else.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to be comfortable enough to confront yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's terrifying. I still find it really hard, actually, because acting, I've never bothered me two jots. From the minute you stand up on stage, and I think my first theatre job was 1,500 seat theatre, and I was like, yeah, go on then. But being yourself is very tricky, and also it's kind of odd what goes through your head. Do you know what I mean? The lyrics that come out of me, I'm a bit like, really? Do I really think that? So it's
Right.
yeah, it's quite. You feel like you're channeling something else. I don't know. It's hard. I feel like they're kind of dropped into you songs as well. I don't really feel like you make them yourself. It's odd.
Because I've interviewed a lot of poets, and poetry is that art of exploring and projecting how you feel in a way that the listener doesn't know how to articulate. Right? So you as a songwriter have to learn to articulate your feelings in that way. And how old were you when you first felt confident enough to share those feelings with someone else, right? Because you can sit around alone in your room doing it for years, right?
Yeah. I was quite quick. I mean, I went to acting school, and we had singing lessons on a Monday night, and they moved around, but mine was the last one. It was at 9 o'clock on a Monday night, so we finished at 5, and we all used to hang around in the common room. And my mate Paul, who's now no longer an actor, he's a bailiff now. He was a prison officer.
Yes,
he says it's a real acting job.
Yeah,
and he's got the most beautiful voice, and he was just playing guitar, and he taught me a couple of chords, and then I didn't play anyone else's songs. I only wrote my own songs. I still can't play any other people's songs. Arguably, I can't play my own very well either, but there you go.
You can. You said that therapy and then kind of laughed about it, but was that laughter about actually, yes, it is. It's hugely important for me, especially this album, A Grief Observed.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, it is. When you're writing an album, you try and work out what it's about, and it happened during my divorce. So, I think the first song on the album was written literally that day. So I was, and then someone gave me the book, A Grief Observed, by C.S. Lewis, which is an incredible book. And I don't feel sad when I play it, or I actually don't feel sad at all anymore. One processes these things really well. Time does that. But I did sing the title song, A Grief Observed, the other day at a launch of the album, and I got a huge lump in my throat. So it's amazing how your brain creates and your heart creates new strategies to deal with stuff. And I was like, I've listened to this song 100 times in 500 mixes of it back and forth.
That's
and
strange,
not
isn't
affected
it?
me. And then I'm like, it was weird.
Did you try to analyse why then and there at that moment it had affected you in a way?
I didn't. I think the thing about grief, and I know it's a bit, I'm taking a bit of a liberty really by talking about grief, but the end of relationships and stuff like that, and families, if you've got children, it totally is grief.
Grief, without a doubt, it's grief.
It's the end of a family, and in one way, and it's the beginning of a family in another way. So I'm not trying to be negative about it, but I don't really know why it got me, but it was I think it's kind of important that it does. Well, I allow it.
Because one of the questions I wanted to ask you was about the distance you allow yourself between the act and the feelings and the committing it to music. And it's, from what you've just said, no time at all.
I mean, literally, the first song, which says I think it's called Say Goodbye Properly, I wrote that after getting out the cab, after we'd had the big chat, and I then got a cab to work, and I then went to the dressing room. So we're talking about 15 minutes. And then this is why sometimes I don't believe songs, you write them. I sometimes think they get written and dropped into your head, because it was delivered as one full, whole, solid song in my head with all the words like that. Mad.
I mean, you were married for 8 years.
8 years, yeah.
Yes. Looking back on it now, because you've said yourself, you know, and I'm not your therapist.
Please be my therapist.
About time, forgiveness and compassion. It's been the most important things for you. But how long before it became clear that it was not going to end well, did the clues were there and that you denied them to yourself?
I didn't even spot them.
Wow.
So my brother spotted them. And he was prepping me for what was for the life change, you know.
Was he implicitly prepping you?
No, he was explicitly prepping.
Okay. So, dude, this is going to end.
He was just like, you've got, you know, this is, you know, the thing about relationships, if they're not working, is it's two of you not working. And, you know, because you're both heavily invested, you're trying to find whatever ways out of things you can, or whatever ways in, and how to do things properly. And sometimes it just doesn't work. It's the most high emotion period of your time, so it takes someone often, and he's a total lifesaver. All my family are amazing, wonderful people, but he's an absolute lifesaver, and he just sort of gently prepped me for, you know, certain things. And I'd actually did a bit of therapy as well, and that was helpful. But the process,
once it's ended, or in the course of it,
on the way up to it, yeah,
right,
because you obviously have a couple of false starts,
right?
And
did you try to save it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Christian, so I believe in marriage, and I also believe in the vows. So, you know, that's the hardest thing, actually. It's like going, oh, God, I made the promise. I've got to keep the promise. And I think that was tricky for me.
How long did it take you to overcome a sense of failure? Because you also see marriage as I'm married, and it's kind of like, and having children especially is the greatest project of your life.
Yeah.
Right? And you want to succeed at that.
Well, I don't see it as a failure now, because
no.
We were, you know, for whatever reasons, it takes two to tango, doesn't it?
Of course.
We didn't get on brilliantly, and so everybody suffers in that situation.
Indeed.
So now we've got a situation whereby, you know, it takes time to get there, but we've got a situation where everybody is thriving. So you actually go, this is a blessing. Rather than, it's odd. You start becoming really grateful for things that caused you less than 5 years ago. Well, when was it? I can't remember, 2015?
2016, yeah.
2 or 3 years ago, you're just like heartbrokenly gutted. And now for the exact same thing has made you happy and fulfilled. So the world is a crazy place.
Yes, the old cliche of whatever doesn't kill you.
Yeah, makes you giggle.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. There was not a lot of giggling going on in 2016.
There really wasn't. But there wasn't a lot of things. I couldn't even think, you know, so.
How successfully did you manage to shield your children from this?
We've done really well. We've done really well. You need a lot of help with that. But, you know, we both have very loving families. So, you know, everyone comes in. I mean, my mum and dad live 200 metres up the road. My brother lives 100 metres that way. My sister lives a mile that way. My eldest brother lives in Somerset for some reason and is a scaffolder. But, you know, it's up to him, isn't it? And so,
obviously,
you know,
likes the fresh air.
You just become very, you know, you go back. And I'm quite useful to my family now, because half the time I'm like, Loz, can you do this? Can you do that? You're free. So, I'm like handyman in waiting. Yeah,
it's you have had such a fascinating life, and you've got such fascinating opinions, and that's why I'm glad we've got you right till 4 o'clock to talk about all of these. I mean, a custody battle, and, you know, a grief observed, we know what the grief is in the title of that. But you mentioned, which I thought was really fascinating, which is that when you halving the time that you're going to see your children with is a mental health crisis straight immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I still find that very hard. So I find that agonising. Yeah, It's really, you love your kids. It's like,
Yeah,
but also you're so happy for them that they're with their mum.
Yeah.
Again, it's that complete funny thing that you get in life where, and because the kids find it difficult sometimes as well. Kids do. This whole modern way of going like, oh, it's divorce, man, just cool, do it. In this like disposable marriage mentality that a lot of people have nowadays. Not a lot of, not everybody, but a lot of people think divorce is the answer. But actually, divorce is just like marriage with rocket fuel behind it. That's what it is, because you have to get on better, you have to communicate better, you have to be more understanding of someone's position, and you get none of the bonuses, like being with someone and having them make tea and going for a walk with the dogs.
Yeah, cuddling up on the side.
You know what I mean?
That stuff, yeah.
So it's kind of, yeah.
Who got the dogs?
Well, dear Baxter, I didn't want to, my brother was pretty cool about it. He's like, don't take the dog. You want to be free because maybe you want to go on holiday. And I'm like, you smart man. So dear Baxter stayed, and then I was so lonely without, because also what happens is, the funny thing is, you're very busy, your house is very full of kids running around doing stuff, and then it's deathly quiet and they're gone.
Which compounds the mental health issue.
Well, you're just like, who am I? You don't know who you are. Are you that guy or that guy? So I then got myself a dog, and then another dog, and then 2 parakeets, who are so noisy.
What do they say? Have you taught them to
They don't say anything, but they like the boys more than they like me. I know that, because I'm boss man. So
yeah, you have to be the bad cop in the situation. Laurence, I never thought we'd end this part of the interview talking parakeets, but there you go. This is how interesting you are. It goes in all different directions. Right, 32 minutes past. Okay, Laurence Fox is with us. His new album, A Grief Observed. One thing I found fascinating about this album and what drove it was that, when you were married, and even before that, you're a very private person. Yeah. Right? Which means that you make an album like that, and then people like me, who you've known approximately an hour and a half, ask you questions about very personal aspects of your life. I mean, yes, you wrote these songs, some of them very quickly afterwards, but how difficult was it for you to decide, I'm going to let other people hear these songs? I
think it's really important to talk about these things that people, a lot of things, people bury a lot of what's going on in their head and the suffering that goes on. Men. A lot of men. And, I can't remember, I think it might have been your pal Jordan Peterson on here. It was talking about
He's been on here twice, yes.
You're only...
My pal.
People have got... Well, it was such a sweet interview. I really enjoyed the interview. You got a lot out of him, which some people don't.
Yeah.
And...
that's because I decided not to just go and attack him.
Yeah, I think it was good. But, he's, as he says, people carry a lot of tragedy in their lives. And if it's not their own, it's someone they love. And I think it brings us together to understand that. But at the same time, again, I do kind of admire the stiff upper lip English thing. But for me, I just had to do it. It wasn't something... I didn't really go, right, I'm going to write an album about that and share it. But also it's kind of, this is the way I write. I write about the way I think and see. So that's what I was thinking and feeling about at the time.
Was there any conflict between being in an acting dynasty as you are and that perhaps that needs to express with going to a boarding school where the opposite is true? I haven't been to a boarding school, but my interactions with friends who've been to boarding schools, and especially speaking to women who've gone out with men from boarding schools. Yeah, it's never complimentary, just to be clear.
There's a book called The Boarded Heart about men that have been to boarding school.
Right.
I feel much more sorry for my boarding school than I do for myself, because I was hell for them.
Well, you were expelled, weren't you?
I was expelled. Yeah. Well, I was asked not to come back. I think I was strictly expelled. I was just not allowed to be.
Yeah, that's because it looks better on your report, doesn't it?
I think it makes me an OH, an Old Harrovian.
Okay.
But what's more interesting is, so was my dad, so was his dad.
Right.
Right. And boarding school, the values of boarding school, I think they've changed now, because I think they've made it more, whatever the right word is for 2020. But then we were always encouraged to be free with our thinking by our parents. That's how we were raised.
But what about your feelings?
Well, that's the problem. So if you walk into a boarding school environment and go, no, excuse me, I'm not going to do that, then you break teeth. You get teeth broken. So it takes a while to work out the balance. But I do respect what my boarding school taught me on some levels, and on other levels, I think I'm glad they've changed. But I was much worse for them than they were for me.
Did you have a boarded heart?
I don't think that's one of my problems.
Right.
I don't think I think possibly needing to board it up a bit more might be one of my problems.
Well, you did say being expelled was the reason was for something that happened at a disco? Sixth form disco?
Yeah. There was some impropriety with
this was though presumably a series of issues that led to this.
Yeah, I mean, I was just dreadfully badly behaved. But I mean, what's going to happen if you have an all boys boarding school and then you invite an all girls boarding school to dance to a dance? I mean, what do you expect to happen? Well, what happened, and a few squelches, and I was in trouble.
You said that something you deplore in yourself is dogmatism.
Yeah,
and you deplore hypocrisy in others. How does dogmatism manifest itself?
I think I'm right quite often, and I don't like hypocrisy. What's that line that hypocrisy is the tribute that something pays to virtue? You know what I mean? I can be very dogmatic. I can stop listening to people. I don't like it. Like if I get onto a flow of a thought that I think that is true within me, I'll get onto a flow, and I don't talk to people. I start talking at them, and then I start really shoving it down their throat, and I don't like it in myself. I think I'm better at checking it now and going, there are two people in this conversation, Loz. Maybe you'll get something more if you get some feedback from them. And then I probably hate hypocrisy because I don't like people doing the same thing to me. You know, we're all, I think we do dislike in others what we have in ourselves. But I suppose why I voice my opinions now more often than I used to publicly is because I'm trying to have a go at my own hypocrisy. Because I don't want to be the guy that says what I say in private and then in public I'm the wokest man since Wokesville was inhabited by the wokes.
But what of your opinions on the world have changed recently?
Abortion.
Okay.
Yeah. Intrinsically, I'm very, very anti-abortion. I don't know why. I'm just extremely anti it. I've not.
Is this religious?
I think it could be religious, but
Is this Church of England or Catholicism?
No, it's Church of England, but I don't think it really had anything to do with religion. It might have done because my parents never spoke about it. It's never been mentioned. I just really anti it. And then I was listening to a woman called Ella Whelan the other day talking about abortion. And she said that if you really wanted equality between men and women and you really respected women, then you would respect exactly what they did with their body right up until that 9 month, until labour. And I thought, that's something I've really got to think about. So I went from this is also the problem with the way we are at the moment with these heavily polarised opinions. You know, I'm somewhere in between those two, but I've gone from being very right, abortion's bad, to hang on, she's really got a point. Because isn't it dominating women to tell women what to do with their bodies? I don't know. I find it hard. That's one of the things. I've chose a light one for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have been very open about, say, woke, for instance, which lots of people use now as a disparaging term, and you've seen it as a religion. Explain why you think woke is a religion.
Well, I think it's replaced religion, hasn't it? Because it's basically, it's about compassion. Fundamentally, it's about compassion, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
political correctnesses.
Yeah. And the problem with compassion is it's subjective. So you're comparing your compassion to somebody else's, and therefore it becomes competitive. So you become your own God because you're in charge of how compassionate you are, how tolerant you are, and all of these things. And ultimately, that makes you extremely authoritarian at the same time,
or dogmatic,
unlike no one I know. And
right.
So and it's full of hypocrisy. And I also think, you know, I'm one of these people that's, you know, I'm not vastly experienced, but I have spent some time in other parts of the world, and and I think we should be extremely grateful for how, you know, in the proper sense of the word, progressive our society is, and we should be celebrating some of the stuff that we've achieved rather than navel gazing into ourselves and trying to see who's the most politically correct person. I don't like it. And I was just listening to your conversation before about racism, and I'm starting to get a bit fed up with the racism chat, if I'm really honest, because I don't think this is a very racist country at all. I think there are some racist people in this country, and I think that you're never going to get rid of them. You can educate people. There are people that, you know, But I don't think we live in a racist country. I think we live in an amazingly tolerant and wonderful, fantastic country with some nasty elements to it. And I've, you know, I do find it a little with the BBC, if I'm honest, that we're trying to kind of peddle this story that this whole Meghan Markle thing or anything to do with it is racist. I think it's very rude to your average English person who walks through their life and is colourblind, which is now a microaggression if you say that in university, who's absolutely colourblind and will take someone for the content of their character, not the colour of their skin. I think it's wrong that we have this as a conversation because I don't think we're a racist country.
Do you understand why
Says the white guy.
Yeah,
You know?
well, that was going to be my next point,
Yeah.
was that could you understand why some people of colour would find it a little bit rich for an old Harrovian born into privilege to tell them that racism isn't a thing? Because you're not going to be a victim of it.
Well, you know, but I'm a victim of other things. You know, we're all victims of something, aren't we? I don't get working class jobs because I'm posh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're all a victim of something, but let's not draw our intersections.
But I guess no one's denying that you may not get that, whereas you're denying something that you're never going to be a victim of.
What I'm saying is I've not experienced it. I have quite a broad spectrum of thing. I'm not denying that racism exists, but what I'm saying is our country, whenever it's polled, whenever we talk to the people of this country about race, it's never the most important thing that people talk about. And to have this whole thing about how anti-immigration this country is and stuff like that, I think we embrace and we love immigrants to this country, and I think it's absolutely 100% natural to notice differences in colour of skin, in the same way as, you know, we're more mindful of strangers. But I don't think that's racism. I think that's the other. And to compartmentalise it into racism, it exploits the people that aren't racist. What it does is it says, because we all would feel slightly bad anyway, or maybe we are racist, that it starts to engender in society this feeling that we're all racist. And I don't know any racist people of any colour.
I don't know any murderers, but I still know murders happen.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sure, but I know a lot of people who've experienced racism.
But the point being is that no one's ever going to drive past you and call you a packy. I mean, that's not going to happen.
That's true.
And you're not going to have a hijab ripped off your head.
That's true.
So in that
but
respect,
these are incidents, that's an opportunity for us, for you and me, to stand in defiance of that behaviour.
Yes, absolutely.
Whatever the colour of our skin.
By not denying it.
I'm not denying it. I'm saying these are incidences. It's not systemic in our country, and I find it very sad for our country that we're looking at ourselves like that. Yes, there's a history. I mean, there are things that have happened in this world that are so horrifically appalling, like slavery and stuff like that. But we're moving forward and we're moving out of that.
But we're not, though.
Are we not?
Well,
all of the records say that we are.
Statistically, actually, we're not. Certainly in the last 2 to 3 years. Now, you can then argue whether it's reported hate crime rising because people are more now willing to report it, whereas my parents' generation would have just had to put up with it. So you can argue that the only reason it's gone up, but unfortunately the statistics do point towards that it is. Also, as well, of course, just from the security services alone, are saying now there's increasing far-right extremist terrorist plots.
Well, I mean, look at all the school shootings in America and stuff. They're not committed by anyone. They're committed by white guys. Look, I'm totally there. I'm just saying to let's attack the crime. Let's not attack the people. You know, let's deal with the crime, not and treat the criminal as another human being. I'm not denying the existence of racism. I'm just saying that I don't think we're a really racist country. No. And I'm extremely...
We aren't in comparison to lots of parts of the world.
I have mixed race cousins and, you know, things, nephews and things, and nieces. And you know, it's a very contentious and difficult topic. But I really think, why are we doing this? We all know why people are fed up with Meghan Markle. People know why. And... you know, your quiet average.
Oh, do they? That's an interesting point.
They do.
You said, firstly, that you can be dogmatic, but also you can believe that you're right. Now, one of the things that the conversation we were having before was to encourage us to think about the real reasons, because there's perhaps a superficial reason why we react instinctively to something, and then there's a deeper. After all, there's this whole psychology. Professor Peterson is one of those persons who will look level.
Yeah.
Do you ever take time to look at what may be your blind spots?
They're called blind spots because you can't see them.
But people can point them out to you.
And that's fine. and I'm really up for having a conversation about it. But I think my mum made this very good point about relationships. She said a great relationship is when two people bring out the best in each other, right? And I believe that. I think that makes sense. So I think when you look at the Harry and Meghan thing, I think you can see what's going on. I think you can understand what's going on. And I don't think it's got anything to do with racism. And also, you know, when people go, the press have been so awful to her, for every example of the press being awful to her, do you remember what they did to the Middletons? How they went, you know, little money grabbing, gold digging. That's what the press do.
To be fair, the Huffington Post did make a comparison of a number of. I mean, they
also
went.
The Huffington Post, though.
Yeah, but they looked at it. They did look at it objectively and said, "Well, there's a comparison of how exactly the same it's been treated in the language that is used." I think what the present climate is doing is trying to encourage us to think more. Look, I'm in my late 40s.
My kids are like this. I don't want my kids to be.
But that's interesting because you pointed that out. That your son said. Their favourite subject was social justice.
Yeah.
And your father, their grandfather, said, you don't need to add a word to justice.
Doesn't need a modifier.
Right.
Yeah.
But you would say that, but then why is it that black and Asian men receive longer sentences for committing the same crimes? Now, would it not be social justice?
Where's your stats on that?
Oh, they're government statistics. I can send you the link. Yeah, they're government statistics. Average length of sentence. If you're black or you're Asian, you will get a longer sentence for that is
exactly the same crime.
Exactly the same crime. So there is certainly a social justice need because the justice system itself is not dealing with that. So the social justice part is to say, well, society needs to look at that and do that. So that's an interesting question.
Incident. You know, there's, I don't know, that's an incident of, I've also
it's systemic.
Really need to see that.
I will send them to you. Yeah, you're on Twitter. I will send you the link.
I would love to see all of that. Yeah. So I can obviously, so I can see my blind spots should that be the case. But I know that in... there are other examples used, like in America, the crack cocaine and then the crystal meth thing, and you know, there's exactly the same crime for exactly the same sentence for exactly the same crime, and you know, of course, there's going to be disparities, but let's look at the things that we're doing that make us better.
And there are amazing
and more
things.
Wonderful.
Your kids have been brought into a world that is far better than the world you and I were
nervous to talk. They're what they feel. They're nervous. They don't have freedom of speech because they'll say things like, "I'm sorry if this is racist, but I think Mum's a better cook than
we need to get you over there to sing. We need to get you over there to sing. Laurence, thank you so much for coming in. The album is called